Filtering data in Excel. Filtering data works a whole lot like the sort function. You're going to see they're very similar. In fact, that's probably why they're here on the home menu under the same category, sort and filter, because they both behave kind of similar, only that, well, sort sorts a list of values, and filtering only displays certain values depending on conditions. That's what the difference is. You know, the difference between both of them is basically the name. Sort sorts, and filter simply applies a filter that limits the amount of cells that you display. Now, filtering data is very convenient for viewing large volumes of data in Excel, like right here. You might think that this is like the word list you saw in the last chapter of this tutorial, which was like 30 values long. No, this one's much longer. This one's about 400 or so values long. And as you can see, it's pretty difficult to move through this list, and find a value. It takes a lot of time to move through it. So that's where using filters in Excel is pretty useful. How do you use a filter? Well, like sort, the best way to use a filter is to have column titles. It's not strictly necessary. Once again, you can use filter without having these column titles. Just select your range and activate the filter command. But it's much easier, of course, if you have these titles, because Excel is going to take these and it's going to know that it's supposed to place your filter right here. So you go to the sort and filter menu, which is in the home menu. You click down and you select filter. And as soon as you select filter, you get these little squares on the cells that are filtered. Basically, what Excel is telling me is these are your control columns, okay? You can filter on this one, filter on this one, filter on this one, or filter on all of them, or on some of them, like we're about to see. Okay, so how do you use the filter in Excel? Well, once we've activated it, we simply open the drop-down, and the easiest way to use it is to select the value that you want to filter from this list. In this list, Excel is going to give you every single value that it found in that column underneath the title. Let's say we want value A139. We're going to deactivate everything here on Select All, and we're only going to select A139. And when I press OK, notice that I get only the cells in which the value is A139. And notice that up here, the little square changed. Now it's got this funnel icon. And the funnel icon means that you have a filter active on this column. Notice that the rows are also different. Now you have 9, it jumps to 473, and then it jumps to 520. There's hidden rows here. If you can't remember the thing about hidden rows and what all these lines mean, there's a tutorial on hidden rows at the start of this course, which you can check. But anyway, what Excel is telling us here is that there's hidden cells because it filtered everything. Normally, when you apply a filter, the rows which are affected by the filter turn blue. So that's how you know that there's a filter active. Because sometimes you open this worksheet 2 weeks later and you see and you say, well, that's strange, there's only one value there. Or even worse, if you have 400 values and it turns out you filtered 100, you might not actually notice that the values are filtered and you'll copy and you'll be missing data. But if you look here and see that the rows are blue, you can say, okay, something's going on there. There's probably an active filter that I need to deactivate. Which one of these columns is the filter? This one right here that has the little funnel icon. Now we can also filter in other ways. If I wanted only the A's, I can type into this box A dash. And with that, my list is automatically filtered to only the values that have A. So I press OK. And notice that now I get only A's. And notice that all these rows are blue, indicating that there's a filter affecting those rows. Now I can keep filtering here on. Say, for example, that I want to filter on words. And I want only those 4 words. So here we are. See, now I have codes that only start with an A and words that I selected from the list, like this. Now, if I want to clear the word filter, I'm going to press this option here, which says clear filter, and I'm right back to my A's. Because, of course, I deactivated the filter for word, but the filter for code is still active. I still have to deactivate that one if I want to get the full list of values. Now there's other more advanced filtering functions that you can use, depending on what it is exactly that you need. There's these things here that say text filters. For example, you can filter on a value that's exactly equal to something that begins with or ends with. For example, if I want something that begins with ST, see, now I get a filter for this word which starts with ST. Or I can filter on cases, and on cases I get number filters, which means that it's equal or the greater than, or very useful, numbers that are between something. So for example, I can filter numbers that are between 35 and 55. Or let's make it 35 and 45. And here we go. I just got all the numbers that are between 35 and 45. That's one way to filter it. There's other interesting options here. For example, when you're doing numbers, you can do the top 10. Of course, here, since there's only individual items, I don't have a top 10. I just have one item of each type, and so the top 10 returns a 0 value. Now, above average and below average, that's also really interesting. What Excel is going to do is it's going to average all our values, and everything that's above, it's going to display. So for example, if you had a list of students here and their grades, you could figure out the average for the class and tell Excel to give you the students that are above the average and the students that are below the average. Okay, when you want to completely clear the filter, if you have a bunch of filtered columns and you don't want to go column by column deactivating this thing, just go to this sort and filter option and press either clear or press the filter button again. And with that, your list is exactly back to normal. Okay, one final word. Be careful when you're operating on filtered data. Why should you be careful when you're operating on filtered data? Well, because operations sometimes don't work like they should. Let's say that I have these rows that are on C. Now, copying these rows usually works pretty straightforward. You just copy and paste somewhere around here. Now watch what happens when I paste. I only pasted 2 values, but I didn't really paste 2 values. What happens is that all these rows are hidden by the filter. So if I clear the filter, there's my pasted data. But what happens is I'm not seeing it because the list is filtered. And what happens is that if I come down here and I say, well, I don't need these, and I delete them, it turns out that I still have a whole bunch of data right here left over. And also notice something else. There's a blank row right here. Where did that data go? I have no idea. I mean, the data might not have been there. I might have accidentally deleted it or something like that. I just didn't notice. When I modified the value, when I pasted the value, well, something happened there, and I'm not sure what it is. That's a real problem when you discover it 2 weeks later, and you notice that in your list there's a missing value here, and you go like, okay, what happened there? What was there? And what errors did I just generate during these 2 weeks thanks to that? So that's why you got to be really careful when you're using filters. Because when you're hiding rows, you can't be sure that what it is you're copying is going to copy the entire range, or when you're pasting, that you're actually pasting an entire range. Now, there's a key combination that's really useful when you're working filters, which is this one, Alt semicolon. You press Alt and the semicolon at the same time, and what that does is that it selects only the cells that are visible. So for example, if I select this range right here and I leave it like this, I just selected every single row in this range. It doesn't matter if there's 23, 24, and whatever hidden in between these two. Excel is currently understanding that I want to select all those cells, including the hidden ones. So how do I tell Excel to select only the visible ones, only the ones that are filtered? Well, I press Alt semicolon. And when I do that, look at all these division lines which appeared. Those lines are telling me, okay, now you're selecting only those rows which are visible. And when I copy that, it selects only those rows. Notice how the marching ants are now circling every single cell in my range. And if I open a new tab here and I paste, I get only these rows pasted. And notice that right now they're on continuous rows. This is row 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, so that's the easiest way to work with these filters. Simply select your range, but before you do anything to it, press Alt semicolon to select only the visible rows. And there you can delete your cell values without having to worry that you might be deleting something that's on a hidden row. See, and these are all the rows that I deleted. Now, of course, if I didn't want to be so messy and I wanted something that wouldn't leave all those blank rows in my list, I would do this. I'd press Alt semicolon to select all the rows. Then I would right click on the row number and say delete row. Once again, select all of these, Alt semicolon, and then I right click over this range of cells and I say delete rows. And when I delete the rows, I get my list with no blank rows in between. So remember that combination, Alt semicolon, when you're using filters. It's really useful to know. Thanks for watching this video tutorial. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and to visit our website, cubicleoverlords.com, for more instructional videos like this one.